Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Um, you are welcome to this, as you can see, second last module of this course. Yeah. And just a little bit of backtrack to where we've come from. Our last module, which we will have next week, as we'll discuss, will be about how to learn from M&E. But before we do that, we have had a journey right from the beginning when we talked about the concept of M&E. We also revisited the concept of results-based management, which informs this monitoring and evaluation. We saw how projects begin through analysis, setting of objectives, the logical framework. We also reviewed on the indicators, how indicators are used to check progress, the tools for M&E monitoring, project monitoring, M&E reporting, the work planning for M&E, the baseline studies, that inform results-based M&E. Project evaluations, we did that. We also looked at the risk management as the last aspect of this training. So today, we would like to engage on what you'll say is the aftermath. The evaluation that is done when everything is done. And that's what we call impact evaluation. And that will be our conversation today. Now, in this module, we will attempt to give you a background on impact evaluation, what it's about, and we will explain the project attrition. Attrition is the cause of what is observed as change. That's what we call it, project attrition. We'll see how that comes in to cause the impact that we think about. All right. And then we will also expose you to how then can you carry out an impact evaluation as a final part. So, Brother Paul.
Yes.
With that, I want to believe that we will close with a word of prayer. Unless you want to advise that before we proceed, we invite one of us to start us off with a word of prayer.
Your suggestion is okay. We can proceed. We'll close with the prayer.
The prayer. Great. In the interest of time. Now, let's reflect on the work that we do, either currently or what we've done elsewhere. And let's think about impact. Let's think about impact. I know impact is normally the list of priorities for project teams, because they which probably inevitably they do, because then they have to prioritize implementation. And you cannot, perhaps one will argue talk about impact if you have not worked hard to implement. And I think that reality always makes impact look like not very key. But I think at management level, a manager is very cautious of where the project is going. And one of the things that we should bother or should make the manager or coordinator of the project is to look ahead and remember that you will be judged by the change you create with the interventions. I think it's wrong always to imagine that let's think about impact when we are done. That's how sometimes the understanding of impact is lost. Unfortunately, again, not everybody who starts implementing a project ends with it. You'll find that the people who were early in the project are no longer there, others have come. But again, in project management, when you think about something and you implement it, you record it, you document it. So if you'll not be there, you'll have done enough justice to begin to do a bit of documentation. Now, before we probably ask ourselves how this works for us, the question will be, what then really is impact evaluation? Yeah. You know, there are various types of evaluation, like we mentioned earlier. There is formative evaluation, the evaluation you do, yeah, in order to justify an intervention. Then there is ongoing evaluation that you do just to keep tabs with the expected impact. And then there is the midterm review, which is done, in the middle of the project. And later there can be another ongoing evaluation, but there will usually be a final evaluation. Or sometimes they call it endline evaluation, which is done after the program is completed. And please note that impact comes way after evaluation, way after the end of the project. Although there are those other impacts that we'll have talked about through evaluation. But the real impact that we know of is one that checks what has happened, what is the change that the program has brought. Okay, so impact evaluation provides information about observed changes that are brought about by an intervention or a program. And this, by the way, changes can be positive or negative. It can also be intended or unintended. It can be direct or indirect. All right. So these impacts have to be viewed from that point of view. Yeah. When we do, therefore, an impact evaluation, we just want to establish why. What is the cause of those changes? Yeah. And that's why we talk about causal attribution, the cause of what we see, or even sometimes causal interference. Yeah. What may have happened in order for us to get the appropriate impact, causal interference. So if an impact evaluation fails to systematically undertake causal attrition, that is, if it does not bring in clarity about why things have happened the way they are, then that impact evaluation may not be correct, may not be correct. Yeah. In other words, impact evaluation is supposed to give us an explanation of what we see, whether positive or negative. We shouldn't see the causal aspect to it, what we call causal attrition. If it does not isolate that, if it does not, the evaluation does not tell us in no certain terms why a certain impact, why women now, the gender discrimination has reduced, for example, that can be one of the impacts. Yeah, you intervene to empower women. If the women are empowered and we cannot explain that empowerment, then the evaluation will have failed us. And that's why we say impact evaluation is really about the information that you provide or explanation that you provide, all right, in order to explain the change that is coming out of what has happened in terms of either a policy or a program or a project. Now, the OECD, these are the overseas economic countries development. They coordinate the OECD is a European organization that helps to coordinate development aid in developing countries. Now, this is how they define, from their experience, this is how they define impact, because it's what we want to understand. And for them, which I also subscribe to from my experience, is that impact is a positive and negative primary or secondary long-term effect produced by a development intervention, directly or indirectly, intended or unintended. There are ways when you think a project produces results that you really didn't think about. Well, if they are positive, you are happy, but sometimes you find they are negative, so this kind of affects you. So, according to this definition by OECD, it goes, all right, to explain that impact evaluation just goes beyond explaining or describing the impacts that have occurred. And I know a number of you probably have witnessed, you have hired consultants maybe, or even carried out impact evaluation, and you just describe, there was this and there was this. Looking at your baseline, and then you say what has happened. Good enough. But if it's an impact evaluation, yeah, then it must help us to understand why that change has happened. So it goes beyond describing. It also encompasses a broad range of methods. So to be able to do an impact evaluation, you cannot rely on one approach, because you want to find out or to justify the relationship between what was done and what has come out. And also, impact evaluation does look at unintended, impacts. Those impacts that have been produced, but then they were not expected, and that you expect during impact evaluation. So then you ask yourself, why is impact evaluation important? What is the justification? Why do you need it? I guess from what we've been discussing, this should be something you already can tell. Okay, if you do an impact evaluation at the beginning of the program, at the beginning of the project, all right, then you want to get information about whether The project should continue. Should it be discontinued? Should be replicated or be scaled up? So one of the reasons why you want to do impact evaluation is to improve or reorient an intervention. Yeah. So if you think about, as a manager or as a team, you may begin to have that gut feeling, maybe from your monitoring reports, that maybe you're not on track, or some circumstances have taken place, and you want to see whether you need to align yourselves to those circumstances. Okay. So you can also do an impact evaluation when during the ongoing process of the other one we have talked about at the beginning, at the formative level, but you can also do impacts during ongoing implementation of a program or a project, so that you check on the way implementation is being carried out. You want to ask yourself, is the way we are implementing appropriate? Is it effective? Is it relevant? Is it likely to, produce the impacts that we desire? Yeah. So impact evaluation can help in bringing answer to that, so that you get to understand whether the process of implementation is going on well or not. Of course, you can also do impact evaluation as a summative action, meaning you just want to the so-called end line. You want to conclude. So the reason why you want to do an impact evaluation is to justify what has been happening and perhaps put on record what exactly has been achieved. But again, at summative level, you probably may not have a lot of impacts to document about, but there'll be indications. You remember the indicators, there'll be indicators which you can measure, and they can give you a clue, if you will, as to whether implementation is justifying the way it was. Okay. And based on that, then you can probably decide whether you use those lessons to either start the same program elsewhere or expand it or extend it. You've seen some projects that have been extended over and over. Usually it's after certain evaluation, summative evaluation, that recommends the continuation or expansion. Yeah. Remember, I don't know whether we looked at this, huh? You can see the curve there. Yeah. Can you see the graph showing outcome and time?
Yes, we can see.
Hello, Martin, can you see?
The team here.
You can see it, huh?
Yes.
So you can, from this graph, yeah, from this graph, a red line is if you are implementing a program with the time, all right, it shifts the level of implementation in terms of outcome from the red line to the green line. Yeah. So the gap between what was happening and what has happened is what now we refer to as impact. And this impact evaluation can be done at different places along the project implementation timeline. And that's what informs the justifications for carrying out impact evaluation. So when is it right? What's the best time? When do you decide to have one? Because again, this usually will draw use of resources, all right? So you must do it, or it must be launched in order to give us very useful findings. And if we look for useful findings, then we must justify, or rather we must time it in such a way that it gives us the best results to help us in deciding. So for us to prioritize impact evaluation, we should consider a number of factors, right? For it to give us the intended reasons and justify the same in order to get the maximum out of it. Yeah. So when do you decide that you want to do, and I guess some of you have had that chance, when you question relevance. If the feeling about relevance is on your mind, then it's a time that you might decide that we need an evaluation. If you doubt potential usefulness of the program, maybe not because of your choice, but because of the circumstances. You know, the environment. You remember the risks that appear to affect. Yeah. You may also question the usefulness of the program. That's the time now you can think about doing an impact evaluation. All right. You can also do it when commitment from senior managers or policemen are using its findings. So if the findings are being used or they are required, okay, by senior management, the management may want certain findings, then you can also do that as a reason. You may also use it to check or to give you basis for advocacy, yeah, or accountability requirements. I mean, you are in a bit of a project, then you hear maybe certain events are going to take place, okay, and then you want to go and talk about your project, yeah, and explain what it is, what it does. You can use that as an opportunity to get information that you can speak about your project through impact evaluation. Yeah. Of course, timing is also another reason. Prioritizing interventions. Timing may also be because of where you are in terms of time, maybe at the beginning, at the midterm review stage, or at the end. Yeah. So time can also be a factor that you consider when you want to decide whether to have an impact evaluation. There are two choices here. You can do it belatedly, late, or you can also do it too early. So it's something that you must decide. If you do it belatedly, then it might not give you the information that you want to make decisions at the right time. But again, if you do it too early, okay, you may not get exactly the real situation that can inform your accurate perception of what's going on. So I think it has to be, anyway, in a manner, it has to be decided consciously when you want to decide to have an impact evaluation. Okay. And at this point, those of you who either have witnessed or participated, um, does anyone want to speak to us? Either the justification of doing an evaluation they did, or the timing of an evaluation that they did, so that we also learn from practice. Anyone involved in impact evaluation decision making or justification for it? Anyone? Emmanuel, have you been involved in impact evaluation? How about Gerald? Hello? What did Emmanuel say? Emmanuel, what are you saying? May you kindly zoom the screen. Or is it too small?
Yes, the screen looks to be too small for us here.
Oh, wow, you should have said that earlier. Wow,
Yeah.
let me see, let me see, let me see, let me see. Let me see. Is that better? Hello?
Yes,
Is that better?
it's better now.
Ah, okay. All right. And Emmanuel, have you been involved in some aspect of impact evaluation in your project?
Not really, because this is even a new topic, special for us here.
Oh, where are you?
And I'm at SSG, South Sudan.
SSG. Oh,
Yeah, it's a support group. Yeah,
wow. How is Southern Sudan?
Southern Sudan is not bad.
It's quiet nowadays.
Yes, it's a bit quiet. You know, we are also used to our situations here, whether it's good or bad, but we are used to the system.
Come on. I
Yes,
thought you had to say things have improved.
a little bit. But if
Hmm.
you read the news, South Sudan is always a country where you cannot predict. Anything happens at any time.
Now we pray for you guys to serve mankind.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, it takes more than just courage.
Yeah.
God will bless you.
That's on that, Dr. Amalwa. We are here with Saido Emmanuel. So just
Oh,
on the same,
Martin,
yeah.
have you
So
missed Ugali?
I too much, in fact.
Eh?
Ugali and Mrenda and Sucha.
Wow. But serve mankind, man. Yeah, you know, hii dunia Mungu
Yes.
anatupeana nafasi tofauti. So if that's your calling,
Uh,
we can only pray for you guys.
Thanks very much, Mr. Dr. Wamala. So anyway, concerning the same question on the about the impact evaluation, we have never done here in South Sudan, but we hope maybe with the time through the MDO, John Paul, I think we might reorganize so that you come and do this impact evaluation at our place here at our project.
that's very interesting. And in fact, now you are the right person to speak. Do you think there's a justification to do an evaluation?
Yes, there is. There are a lot of things we need to restructure so that I think we can streamline everything here well.
Oh, okay. So
Maybe
you
that one,
probably might require.
I will talk that one. Maybe I'll share with the MDO, the John Paul, then we shall see the way forward, maybe in terms of logistics.
Yeah, doing an evaluation
Mm.
is important because it at least makes you to avoid doing many mistakes before it's too late.
Sure.
Yeah, and you know every project is unique.
You are right.
Every project is unique, and nothing works like it works the other side. So the most important thing is to look at your own situation and find out what needs to be done that may be similar to other places or completely different because of the unique circumstances you find yourselves in.
You are right.
Great, Martin. Good luck. Any other person? I would like a hands-on experience on evaluation. I know this is something that I've been in projects myself. We focus more on doing what we have been told to do, but the impact leads you to ask questions that are difficult, like we'll see later shortly. Does anyone want to share an experience from their own project environment? Okay, shall we proceed? Are we good to proceed?
Yes.
Right. So remember, you can there are two scenarios where you can conduct your evaluation too early, right? Or you conduct your evaluation too late, belatedly. I think the balance is important, and that depends on every project. Now, who do you involve? That's a question that you must all, perhaps those who have, it's not about just the project team. Yeah. When you want to do an evaluation process, impact evaluation process, yeah, it's very, very important, okay, in thinking of who do you want to involve, as in, are they beneficiaries? Are they affecting the way you work, or are they supporting your work? So that has to be thought through. Yeah, who do you want to get involved? Why? That's very important. If it's government, there are many reasons, and that should be understood. They're in charge of policy. They're the ones who give you permits. So involving them is important. Your donors, your partners are also key. All right. Your other counterparts, the NGOs, you might learn from them. Maybe what you're doing is what others have done. So this has to be done in a thoughtful way. And also how, because how you involve certain stakeholders is not the same as others. So thinking about that, you can decide how to. The bottom line is don't do it alone. Get those who are important stakeholders and involve them. Now, this is how participation can occur. You can help them participate, all right, in deciding whether to do an evaluation. Yeah. So evaluation may be you engage them and see their views of why you want to do an evaluation. Like for you, Martin, if you want and your team, I can see you've already mentioned about your office in Nairobi, the MDO's office. So they should be and others help you to make that decision as to whether evaluation is important and also how you want to do it. Okay. Others, you can involve them in the collection of data, because again, evaluation is about data collections, like you will see, and how that data will be analyzed. Also, you can involve them at the reporting stage, okay? And also managing the process of evaluation. So let it not be just one person's decision. Beyond the team, others who are related to the project, it can be considered. Now, when you think about who to get involved, then there's the concept of participatory approach. Yeah. When you think of who else to involve in an evaluation, is what then leads us to participatory evaluation, meaning you want to get others to get involved. And that should always be the first step when you want to start or to engage into an evaluation process. Okay. If you want to get voices of those who are affected, all right, then you can use that as a reason to get them involved. So you go to them and they give you the information, all right. Then you also want to ensure by adopting a participatory approach, you use, or rather you ensure you have relevant evaluation focus, meaning you agree on exactly, because again, evaluation cannot just, that's why it can never be like the other one. The focus will differ depending on the circumstances of a project. Yeah, you can also embrace participation in order to hear people's own versions. You see, if you are working with farmers, evaluation should avail you opportunity to hear them and what they've got. Sometimes you have to capture their verbatim to make your evaluation a bit more effective. So you must talk to those who are affected and hear them out. Participation also builds ownership. You know, most of our projects are built or rather supported or funded by external donors. When you do an evaluation that is broad-based, when you do an evaluation that is participatory, then you also promote ownership. And I think it's the desire of all donors, like perhaps Brother Paul will tell you, that whatever they do should be owned by those who are meant to benefit, not by the donor. Yeah, and one way of doing that is to get them to participate during evaluation process. Now, when you have different forms of participation by different stakeholders, all right, then you are able to make the evaluation more effective, and it brings out the different dimensions to the impact evaluation. So participatory approaches are key, and they will always add value. Yeah, they always add value to the evaluation process if it's made participatory. If others are involved, participatory evaluation brings validity, it brings credibility, and it brings confidence to those involved. And I think at all levels, we should always aim at ensuring that this is done. Of course, if you do an external evaluation, it will be then the consultant to ensure that to help the the project understand who the stakeholders are and get them to be involved. And since, by the way, since evaluation is judgmental, if it's critical, it's best done by external voice to provide basis for buy-in. Yeah, I mean, if you are talking to a donor and tell the donor, this is how was the external consultant saw and found out, is easier than when you say this is what you see. Yeah. So as you get the stakeholders involved, probably ask yourself, why is this stakeholder important in this evaluation? And whose participation matters, when and why? And when is participation feasible? You know, it's not always given. It has got to be worked out. It's got to be worked out so that it is meant to bring in value. Yeah. Planning and managing an impact evaluation. Before we go to that, anyone with probably a question about the concept of impact evaluation and what it is all about, whether it's important? Anyone who wishes to get some clarity around what this is all about? Gerald?
Yeah.
Any comment or question on evaluation, impact evaluation so far?
Not at the moment. Okay.
Mombi, if you can hear me.
Yes, Daktari.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Kimya sana.
Mm-hmm.
Do you,
I'm
do you, are you
following.
involved in, okay, great. Are you involved in impact evaluation? Either directly or indirectly?
Not really.
Have you heard about it at your place of work?
Yeah, I've heard about it, but
What?
we've never
Mhm.
done it physically.
Mhm.
It's I think it's just on paper.
Okay.
Mm.
And based on what you've heard so far, I know we are still talking about it. You think it's something that would be important to introduce in your project?
Yeah, I think it's quite important so that we can be able to measure our goals and maybe the steps that we've taken, or maybe what we could change to achieve those ascertained goals.
And by the way, according to you, do you think this evaluation that you may wish to have, do you think it is formative as it at the start, or somewhere after the start, or in mid-term? Which one would you think will be good for your project right now? You'll not be held responsible, but just your thoughts.
I think since we've already started, it will be maybe important to do it in the middle and then maybe towards the end. In the middle, it will help us to be able to identify whether we are on the right track and maybe the areas we could change. And at the end, maybe we can check whether we've attained all the impact that we anticipated to attain. So I think it will be good to do both in the middle and at the end. But if the project has not started, it will be wise to do it the beginning, the middle, and at the end, at least 3 times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How long is your project or program?
We will have both the education and vocation.
So
They
how
have
long
been
are
there
you-
for they've been there for quite a while, more than 10 years. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. In your case,
Mhm.
it's okay, and I'm sure most of those projects have phases, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a phase 1, phase 2. That's how normally projects are extended. And by the way, it might be the reason why the project has stayed on for long is
Mhm.
because when the end line or the impact assessment is done at the end,
Mhm.
it recommends an extension.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you go to your documents, you might find what are called midterm review reports or
Mhm.
end term review report.
Mhm.
It will show you why the program was extended, depending on how many years it was. I'm sure if you go back to the archive,
Mhm.
you'll get them the reports. And my advice, if you have time, you look
Mhm.
get one of the reports, then you will compare with what you'll have learned today.
Okay. Thank you. That would be interesting to do. Thank you.
Please find out. As I said, you'll not be held responsible, but if I
Mhm.
meet you, I'll ask you.
It's all right.
Sarafina,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much, Mumbi. Sarafina, if you can hear me,
Can hear you, Daktari.
great.
You can hear
How are
me?
you?
I'm fine.
How are you? All right.
All right.
Are you seeing the slides? Huh?
Yeah, I'm seeing the slides.
Okay. And what's your take on evaluation, impact evaluation, based on what you've just talked about? Have you participated in any?
Yes. No,
Pardon?
I've participated in one, but not as I've participated in. I can't say like a whole evaluation, just a minor evaluation. You know, we have small evaluation now. Then you can have the major one.
Okay. And based on your experience, what is one thing that you can say about the timing of evaluation?
Pardon?
Or maybe, yeah, it's good you didn't hear that. I was asking, based on your experience,
Yes, I'm listening.
there is this concept of participation, the participatory, stakeholder involvement. How has that happened in your project in terms of involving stakeholders in impact evaluation?
By stakeholders in this case,
Stakeholders,
who will be the stakeholders be?
interesting. You should be the one telling us. But anyway, stakeholders are those organizations and individuals that affect the program in one way or another, positively or negatively. A
Like I said,
major stakeholder, for example, would be your beneficiaries. Another stakeholder will be government, because you operate within government guidelines of education, for example, isn't it? Then another stakeholder will be some of the key personalities, maybe in the area, maybe the area MPs, the council, the MCS, they are called nowadays, or even just retired but senior citizens. They can be people who can offer certain perspectives of course, your donor, the one who provides. So in your opinion, who are the key people that you think could benefit if they were involved in the process of evaluation in your organization?
Who are the key
The key
people
stakeholders. Yes.
the key stakeholders are the beneficiaries.
The beneficiaries. Who else?
People involved in the program, the EREP people are also stakeholders, and also the donor is also a stakeholder. Yeah, but like I said, I have not been involved in evaluation that much. Yeah, so in the impact assessment that much, on like on a bigger picture, like a bigger impact evaluation. But we are planning to do one at this year at the end of the month.
So this training comes in handy for you?
Very much.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sarafina. And I want to propose that we proceed.
Yeah.
And now talk about planning and managing an impact. You see, this is a very important exercise. And it needs to be, and I think, Sarafina, you need to listen to this. It needs to be planned formally, yeah, and managed as a discrete project. A project in project. It has got to be planned for from which day it starts and from which day it ends. All right. So that it is not done as if it's by the way. Okay. And when you are planning and during management of this process, okay, remember to include one, this description of what needs to be evaluated. You see, you cannot evaluate what you have not decided to evaluate. So you must agree or decide what is it that we are going to evaluate. Okay. The other thing is you must identify and mobilize resources. Utaifanya tu hivi hivi, as Kenyans say. You must look and set aside resources. Then also you must decide, right, and get the people who will do it. Okay. So that is it someone within the team that is going to do that, maybe internally, or you must decide who is going to do it from the outside, right? So that has to be decided even before anything begins. You also must decide on the process that is used to manage the methodology. Because you see, evaluation is an exercise that is done through through stages. There's stage 1, 2, 3, up to, as you will see. So that process of managing that should be decided. Yeah. And then you should also have a work plan. So it should be clear when the evaluation will begin and when it will stop. And then you also should now come up with a framework of managing the implementation of the work plan. Okay. Including the development of reports. And before you start, you must decide or plan how you're going to disseminate the reports. You see, it's a wasted effort. If you do, yeah, it's a wasted effort. If you do, it's a complete waste of effort if you do an evaluation without reporting, because without reporting, everything else is lost. Yeah. So all these things must be planned for and managed accordingly throughout the evaluation exercise. So Sarafina and others who may be thinking of doing that, these are things that you should look at and review as you decide how to to engage yourself in this exercise of evaluation. Now, as you decide, of course, you must aim to determine the causal attrition, which is delineating or identifying how the changes that you see are created. Okay. And we have various options, which we will also review later, of how you can design your evaluation process. And therefore, it's very, very important that you address impact evaluation, all right, as a part of the M&E and research plan of the organization. It should be part and parcel, you know, because it's within that larger framework that you come up with the plan for evaluation. And you know, this larger framework, it also helps us to understand the way the project is performing, all right, and with the required indicators. And it's through those frameworks that you're able now to come up with exactly what to measure when you want to determine the causal relationship or attrition of impacts in a project. So what are some of the projects, what are some of the methods that are used to conduct an impact evaluation? The first reality that we must always think about is that we cannot do evaluation of everything. We must create a firm foundation, a firm boundary. Yeah, we must know the limits. Yeah, and that is usually provided through the explanation as to why, or the purpose of the evaluation must be stated very, very clear. Yeah, through the purpose, you can know the limits through which the evaluation is going to be carried out. Yeah, an evaluation can be done just to provide opportunities for learning. Okay, and then it can also be an opportunity, all right, to see how relevant and credible the interventions that are being carried out are in the eyes of the stakeholders. Some evaluations will be done to support accountability, and some will be done, you know, to focus on a combination of facts and values that can help in understanding the evaluation. So, sorry. Because of this need to be very clear on the purpose, majority of evaluations, yeah, as identified, this is Saffold-Beam is one of the gurus of project management. As identified by Saffold-Beam, there are certain, therefore, criteria that are used in order to define the objective or the purpose of an evaluation. In many ways, there can be many, there can be all of them, or select a few depending on where you are. Okay. So these criteria, as they are called, can be considered in total or separately, depending on the needs of the project, to inform the objective of the evaluation process. Okay. So impact evaluation can, number one, as a criteria, focus on relevance. As in, what is it that the program or a project is doing that is relevant to the priorities of a given situation? Is it a country? It can be a community, you know? So any project must be relevant to the situation that it's handling. So that can be at the beneficial level, it could be at in our country, it could be at county level, depending on where it is, country or global issues. So it must be relevant. The other one is effectiveness. Are we following the objectives that we are set to do? Efficiency is about how do we use the resources that we are using. Impact is the positive and negative, effect of the intervention, and then sustainability, the continuation part. Yeah. One of the things that a good project should stand out for is that it should be able to continue in the absence of the sponsor. So those are the 5 criteria of carrying out an evaluation: relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability. That is just 5 of them, but there are sometimes other criteria that, depending on depending on the program you're dealing with, sometimes you may find criteria that relate to equity, equality, human rights, gender. You may also get, so it's not locked in just those 5. Depending on the situation, there can be more. Okay. Sometimes it may be different when you are dealing with the humanitarian, for example, assessment or assistant. In that case, your focus might be on, say, coverage, coordination, protection, and coherence, all that. Yeah. So there's no strict way at which you look at evaluation, but either the consultant or the internal people themselves decide on what they want. And then that's the most important part, that it does not mean every evaluation should comply to this established criteria, but every evaluation should endeavor to isolate the reasons why the impact evaluation is important or is required. Now, once the criteria is agreed upon, whether it's these 5 or any other, the next stage now is to collect information based on what we call key evaluation questions. Okay. So they are called key because those are questions that now will directly tell us if we want to know about relevance, if we want to know about sustainability, if we want to know about effectiveness. It will be questions directed to that. Okay. As an example, for example, the key evaluation question number 1 could be, what was the quality of intervention, design, or content? So here, quality means you are perhaps dealing with the relevance, you're dealing with the equity, you're dealing with gender, you're dealing with human rights. So those are just examples. So a question must be asked that relates to the criteria that has been, or relates to the objective that has been brought out for the evaluation study or impact evaluation impact study. So there are a number of exams. When you get these notes, you'll see I've given quite some range of questions Some of them might be familiar to some of you, what you've done. For example, number 2, how well was the intervention implemented and adapted as needed? So here you are looking at effectiveness and efficiency. Yeah. So it's not about asking what's. I hope you notice that you are not asking what was the efficient about it. No, there are questions that have been asked, but directly relate to those criteria. What unintended results, positive or negative, did the intervention produce? So here you're looking at effectiveness, you're looking at impact, you're looking at equity, you're looking at gender equality, human rights, all that. Yeah. Now, normally, once these questions have been asked, then you have what we call detailed mid-level evaluation questions. Yeah. So you do not ask your respondents these questions as broadly as they are. They are broken down in order to maybe effectiveness, another one in impact, that kind of thing. So there are smaller projects, sort of questions, that sub questions that are asked. Now, within the key evaluation questions, yeah, it's very important to decide on what type of questions that you're asking. Okay? Because some questions can be descriptive, some questions can be causal, and some questions can be evaluative. And a descriptive question is one that asks how things work and how they operate. Causal is about relationship, whether what's the relationship between two things that are happening. Okay. Evaluative is about overall conclusion as to whether the program or policy has been considered as a success. All right. So in each of those questions, you have to decide whether it is descriptive, whether it's causal, or whether it is evaluative. The reason why that's important is because when now you evaluate the questions later, when you do now an evaluation, then you the technique of evaluating will be different. If it's descriptive, for example, you can use descriptive statistics. If it's the causal, you can then use inferential statistics. So these questions that ask, you get information that must be analyzed. And that's why it's important to know whether it's descriptive, evaluative, or causal. So how then do we define impacts? How then do we define impacts? What are they? All right. Depending on when you are carrying out the evaluation, yeah, sometimes you may end up just to have intermediate outcomes, meaning they have not yet been converted into impacts, but are just outcome before the impact. Okay, and therefore it's important for us to distinguish between outcomes and impacts, because impacts emerge, all right? They come out as a result of outcomes. So lest we confuse, we need to develop that understanding so that we know whether we are still at outcome level or we have reached the what do you call it? The impact level. Now, it's 11 going 11:30. I would like us to see how the theory of change is applied, because I know most of you have projects with theory of change, is applied to the impact. But before we do that, I need to find out whether are we due for a break or. And before we do that, anyone with a question so far? Or a comment?
Yes, Dr.
Yes, Martin.
Yeah, as you have been explaining about the impact, whether someone in a project has been involving in either evaluation or whatever, mid-term or short-term. I think, as you have been explaining, I think I've realized that I've also involved because I've worked in several projects, and this issue to do with even coming up with a strategic plan or doing baseline evaluation. I think being part of the staff in these projects, I think I've involved, and there were a lot of things that we were able to amend. For instance, on the issue of the activities, are they really relevant? In terms of having the things to do with having a board, advisory, whether advisory or executive board, such caps in the projects. I think, as you have been explaining, I think I realized that I've been part of the implementation or part of the evaluation team, and I think that's helped me a lot, because if I'm working in any organization, I think, because at the end even of the year or whatever, there is this issue to do even with the audit. Audit is also part of the evaluation. So, so I can't deny that I've never involved myself in this kind of evaluation. Personally, I think I've involved myself in this area. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Martin. And there's one thing I've said which I think is good to scale it out. The idea of auditing. Actually, auditing is a kind of evaluation, only that now it focuses itself on financials. Auditors do. But when it comes to evaluation, part of the questions, especially when they're dealing with efficiency, about resources, may almost touch on the issues of finance, but not in a way that the auditors do. Yeah. So audit is a detailed evaluation of financial position of a country, or sorry, of a project, and that's done mostly by internal people, but also occasionally, I think yearly, somebody from outside, external evaluator or auditor is brought in to make an opinion. I would like maybe Martin to tell you that the way auditors are taken serious, and auditors auditing is of course usually very donor driven. So is the impact evaluation, which should be done on a regular basis. It may not be yearly, but there are certain, depending on the project or program, there are certain times when an evaluation needs to be conducted. Any other comment or question? Okay.
Thanks for that clarification. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Can we take a break, or you guys are strong enough? We proceed up the end.
I think we can take a break, a short break.
Short break, yes.
I've also put the list which we got from the organizations. If people can verify whether their names are correctly spelled or the certification. And also we've removed some of the guys that were proposed but have not been able to attend the training. Yeah, so please, if you can just check and also indicate maybe with a thumbs up that your name is okay, then that will be good. So we take how long?
Yeah, do we take 5 or 10 minutes?
Okay, we can come back at 11:41.
11:40.
Yeah, that is around 10 minutes. Yeah, 11:41.
Yes.
Yeah.
11:40. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay.
See you then. See you then. Hello, welcome back. Hello.
Hello.
Are we back? Are we back?
Yes,
Yes.
Doctor. You're back.
Okay, we can proceed.
Yeah, you can proceed.
All right. Now we earlier talked about theory of change, which is one of the techniques that is used during project planning. And lately, there's more of use of the theory of change than the logical framework. Yeah. And I chose to at least present this one because it's a bit more recent than the logical framework. And when you think about evaluations, whether impact or any other evaluation, it's in. You remember we talked about causal attrition, meaning the need to look at linkages between what happens and what impacts that they are. And the theory of change brings out this, I think, more perhaps directly than what we see in the logical framework, all right? And as you recall, the theory of change just explains how outcomes, how impacts and results are obtained based on the activities that are being carried out. So a theory of change, or sometimes the way it's called TOC, is used in order to understand most of the impact evaluations that we think about, okay? The reason for that is because it aims to infer or show causality, which is the essence of impact evaluation. And this causality can be both, quantitative, so that can be given through numerical explanations, yeah, but it could also be qualitative through conversations and the perceptions that people have, yeah. But in today's way of looking at things, the qualitative part and the quantitative part need to be brought to explain causality, so that we don't just leave it to qualitative and quantitative. The two need to be brought together so that you give a comprehensive explanation of a relationship. And that one is now what we call triangulation, all right, which is just about using information from the quantitative to explain the qualitative and vice versa. Yeah, that's called it's called triangulation, and that approach is usually what we refer to as mixed method approach, which is very strong in the impact evaluation. So when you are explaining or trying to state and plan for impact evaluation. And if you are also looking at the terms of reference, maybe for consultancy, then the theory of change should be, of the interventions, the theory of change should be brought out, all right? And if possible, reviewed in order to provide the necessary relationships. And as a matter of fact, by the way, the theory of change does not remain stagnant. Just like we also argue for the logical framework, it needs to be subjected to review, you know, as necessary and as often as necessary, so that you deal with the situations that are actually at hand. All right. Now, in some cases, the theory change may not indicate all types of relationships because they appear to emerge later, you know, as a result of certain issues. So, in that case, the use of theory of change must be revisited and understood from a different perspective. Okay. In some other cases, you'll find you may need a high level theory of how change will come about. And here, the theory must be revised or must be stated to respond to the necessary environment in which the project is taking place. Yeah. So as we apply a theory of change, the concept of adaptive learning, meaning looking at the reality and what was earlier thought about must be connected in order to see whether the theory of change remains relevant to a situation or not. That's very, very important. I think at some point I would like some of you to share with us what the experience of the use of theory of change has been and how that has either influenced the way logical frameworks are viewed or not. That we'll do shortly. But for now, how do we use theory of change so that we can carry out an impact evaluation? There are several ways in which theory of change can be used in the evaluation. Number one, it can be used to identify specific evaluation questions. So when you look at the theory of change, remember we talked about key evaluation questions. The theory of change can be used to come out with some specific questions. The theory of change can also help us to identify reliable variables, which should be used in the data collection plan. The theory or the TOC also can help us to identify intermediate outcomes, which are supposed to be markers or indicators of what impact we might have. The TOC can help us to identify aspects of implementation that should be examined, which is the reason why, anyway, the impact evaluation takes place. So by having a theory of change, we can then identify those aspects that can be used for identification, for examination. And last but not least, we can use the theory of change to identify potentially relevant contextual factors, okay, which can be addressed when we are collecting data and analyzing it. So that's how the theory of change becomes an important part and parcel of the evaluation planning. Now, the evaluation may confirm the theory of change, meaning it may actually tell us that whatever that was expected has actually happened, and therefore it can be used to check for successes along the causal chain. And if not, it can also help us to identify alternative causal paths. So all this is important because by having this clarity with us, then it helps us to really come up with a logical or a clear recommendation, which usually supersedes or comes after an evaluation has taken place. So how do you then decide which methodology to use? Okay. Now, in the methodology of an evaluation, the key aspect to it is the key evaluation questions that will need to be answered. I remember we mentioned that earlier, that every impact evaluation must be framed by certain criteria. It must clearly show what this evaluation is about, what it wants to find out about. Okay. So questions are one way in which we can tell what this evaluation is about. And from the questions, we can also come up with the design that can help us understand the causal attribution. Okay. So it also can help us to come up with strategies and designs for determining the relationship between what was expected and what has happened, the causal attribution. What's a causal attribution? This is an ascription of a causal link between observed or expected to be observed and changes and a specific intervention. So when you have a specific intervention, you want to understand why things happen the way they happen, why an impact is said to have emerged. So in a way, we have three broad strategies which can help us to understand the relationship between the cause and the effect when you are studying the impact evaluation. Yeah. Number one of the strategies is estimating the counterfactual relationship. Explaining or estimating the counterfactual relationship. Number two, checking the consistency of evidence of the causal relationship. Number three, ruling out alternative explanations. Yeah. You know, when you're looking at relationships, you may confirm or may find that what you thought should be doesn't seem to be the case, maybe as per the TOC, the theory of change, and therefore you seek for alternative explanation. Or you can use a combination of these three to be able to understand the causality between activities and the impact that has taken or has been occasioned. Now, when we want to address the causal attribution, which is the reason why evaluations are conducted, there is what we call experimental design. Okay, you can adopt experimental design where you control you have a control group through random assignment. If you want to know the impact of, say, an education project or program, then you and you want to do an evaluation, you consider those that have been exposed, yeah, and those that have not been exposed. Those that have not been exposed are considered to be the control. So you look at the impact that, if you want to understand whether there's a difference between those who benefit and those do not, you may choose to look at those who what do you call it? Those who are exposed or benefited, see their level of maybe literacy level, and then you look at those who have not been. So that becomes what you call experimental design, and it's very common, that one. Yeah. Then there's a quasi-experimental design, which is a construct that compares groups, all right, through matching, regression, discontinuity, propensity scores, or other means. So you're trying to compare, all right, two groups in terms of matching. You look at those that have been exposed under a certain condition, and then another group that was exposed under another condition. For example, assuming you have two villages, and maybe your interest is to know which area has benefited more than the other one. You get, yeah. So you're dealing with two groups that have been treated, but then one is in a different circumstance, another one is. So you want to find out how those two compare. Okay. So it's a bit in the middle of the one that we have just talked about, the experimental now. The non-experimental design is where you just look at what you have and come up with the expected impact based on the theory of change. So you are not involving any comparison, you are not involving any other groups. You just say, okay, this is a group, okay, can we measure what has happened based on what was there and what was not there? Then you determine you determine the causality of the interventions, and that's usually very, very common. What most people do, most consultants do that. They are just told, these are our beneficiaries. Can you find out what this program has been on their lives? Yeah. Sometimes this is once, for example, a consultant listens to you, and you should know that an evaluator does not come with his own or her own agenda. The agenda is the consultant comes with an empty head, listens and defines what you want, and proposes an approach. And depending on what you want, they may propose experimental. Depending on what you want, they may propose a quasi one or a non-experimental design. So once you have, remember, you have decided on the objective, and you will come up with the criteria. Okay. And you have therefore you have therefore decided on which are the key evaluation questions. and you have decided that you probably want to go the non-experimental design or whichever. Okay. The next stage now is to collect data, manage it, and analyze it. Okay, that process must be, and that's very critical. All right. So you have chosen your design. You must now make data collection as your next step. Okay. Impact evaluations need to go beyond assessing the size of the effects. So they usually must tell us the story beyond the story. And that's why most good impacts are carried out by people who are from external, because then they are not, what's the word? They are not cocooned. They are not, wired to look at what they know. They want to look at everything that they don't know. Okay. So once you collect the data, then you also have the analytical framework where you do the analysis. The analysis is about the meaning. What does what you have collected mean? Yeah. And this should be specified during the evaluation planning stage. All these things must be done early before the exercise begin. Okay. So the framework, which is the plan, includes also how data is collected and how it's analyzed. All right. There is the way we analyze data when it's numerical. There's also the way we analyze data when it's textual, meaning it's in words. Yeah. And also there's a way that triangulation is done in order to provide meaning to the expected, provide meaning to the expected outcome of the evaluation impact process. One way of ensuring that you have a plan is to develop what we call an evaluation matrix. Okay, and an evaluation matrix basically is an arrangement as to what question are you going to ask. All right, who is going to be asked that question? What kind of information are you going to get, and how are you going to analyze that information? And that normally must be done before the excuse me, must be done before the kickoff of the exercise. Now, what you're seeing is an example of an evaluation matrix. We are matching the data collection to the key evaluation questions. Is it clear? You can see it? Can you see the table?
Yes.
Good. So that's an example which has questions, okay, and then the method of collecting data. For example, question 1, key evaluation 1, what was the quality of implementation? Yeah, that you easily get it from key informants. You can also get it from the project records. You can also do observation. Okay. To what extent were the program objectives met? Key sources of information will be the survey, key informants, project records, and so forth. And so that must be developed before, so that Once you start the exercise of evaluation, you know exactly where you are going, and means that you already know what is expected, and therefore it makes you go faster. So we have different methods of collecting information. There is, for example, survey. It's interviews, record. These are different. Observation. These are different. So we have different methods of data collection. Some are quantitative, like survey is quantitative. Key informants is qualitative. Project records may be both qualitative and quantitative. Observation is qualitative. Okay. So we have then what we called earlier mixed methods, which is about using the qualitative and quantitative approach. Yeah. And the advantage of having a mixed method is it enhances the credibility of the evaluation findings. I mean, you are able to trust if you are able to say, I found out that this number of people have benefited from this program, but then now you can also explain that you talked to the chief and the chief said ABCD, which looks like concurs. You know, that way you create credibility of the findings that you get, and that's very, very important. Yeah. Good data management includes the following: consistency of collecting and recording data, storing the data securely, cleaning the data, transferring the data between different softwares, effectively presenting the data, and making data accessible for verification and by others. So that's a very important thing during the evaluation process, that the data must be managed well through its collection and storage, recording, cleaning, transferring the same information, all right, and presenting it, and enabling others to access it. That's how data can be managed in a manner that you can say it's good. And of course, management of data and how data will be collected depends on exactly what this evaluation is all about. So, and the type of questions. Okay, that's how you manage the data. Now, some questions may be, like we said, descriptive, key evaluation questions, and then here, the information you get could be both quantitative and qualitative. Yeah, and it's used mainly for answering causal questions. All right. When you look at the numbering and then also the description of what happens. So for causal questions, these are questions that interrogate between what happened and the impact. So it's about the causal attribution analysis. Yeah. Then we have also questions that are evaluative, like we saw earlier. Okay, and those can be managed through looking at the criteria that we talked about, like we saw earlier, of the OECD, you know. So there are two different types of questions which must be clear because of coming up with good data management, so that a descriptive question must be understood as such because it will inform its storage and analysis, A causal question will also inform its, which is about the attribution. Will explain how two aspects in terms of the intervention and impact have taken place, and the evaluative will be based on the criteria like effectiveness, like impact, sustainability, all that. Before we go to the last part, which is the reporting, any concern or comment on the use of theory of change and these other things we've talked about after break? Daniel. Daniel.
Yep.
Any comment about evaluation, data management, use of theory exchange? Have you experienced that, or what do you think?
I've not experienced, and I don't think I have a comment at the moment.
Okay. Have you ever collected data, whatever it is?
Yes, when I was a university student, doing my project.
Okay. So what guided your data collection? By the way, the procedure is the same, eh?
Yeah.
I know that now this is a bit practical, but the procedure is the same. I think you must have been guided by what you called project objectives.
Yes.
And those objectives are now what you will call the key evaluation questions in the ones you have just referred to. So the principle is actually the same. And you remember you are asked to explain how you're going to collect your data.
Yes, yes.
And even before you went to the field, you must have been asked how that data is going to be analyzed.
Yeah, especially what tools one is choosing to use.
Yeah, to use. It's the same story. So I look forward to you getting involved in either monitoring, but particularly evaluation exercise. You'll meet it at some point. You're still young in the profession.
Yes,
You'll
yes.
get across it and you'll find this whole conversation almost the same. Anybody else who would like to share their experience with the data collection? Now, just like after Daniel, you did your data collection, you wrote a report, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You wrote your chapter 4 and 5.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the same vein, after you've collected your data and you have analyzed it, you have to report your findings in a report. Yeah. So there's what we call evaluation report. Yeah. And the evaluation report captures the purpose, which is the overall reason why you do it, and the key evaluation questions of that particular evaluation. And there are usually specific rubrics which are used so that at each of the levels of data collection, you interpret the information that you have obtained from your data collection. Okay. So that most of the evaluations, even before you start you start the exercise, you'll be told or you'll agree with the project how they want that report to be structured. All right. So in many ways, the report will be written to respond to the needs of the project that has hired you to do the evaluation. While they are different depending on the needs of our client, depending on the needs of the project management, generally the following are some of the, what you would say, sections that you'll find in an evaluation report. There will be the executive summary, which is the summary. What Daniel will compare to as the abstract, it just summarizes everything. And then you must use a language, just like Daniel, you are told to use scientific language in writing. Here, we expect evaluative language, because then it's helping us to understand that this was an investigation that was meant to deal with certain aspects. Another advice is to be clear and simple. Don't complicate with the whatever. Just write what it is in the most clear and simple way. Because the big important thing there is not how much you know the language of English, but the findings. Yeah, the findings. So in structuring the findings, because after the executive summary, the introduction, and other areas, there's this findings section, which I think for you, Daniel, that was the chapter on findings and discussions of the results. Yeah. So we have the same, but then the findings are presented according to, according to the objectives, right? According to the key evaluation questions. So the findings, if you had three, depending on the key evaluation questions, then your findings are provided according to what you found out at each of those level, or at each of those level of questioning. Okay. What normally happens is that depending on the priorities of the project, they will either agree that you propose, or they'll give you the structure of the report, which you adhere to. So it's never standard, especially for evaluation. It's never standard. It is dependent on what the management of the project wants, and sometimes they may propose to you how they want that report to be, or they may ask you to develop it, but then they must kind of approve it. Yeah, that's kind of approve it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to the end of today's module. This was meant to give you an overview on the impact evaluation. Shall we hear any comments or questions? Daniel, do you have any question or a comment?
No.
You think today is one of those days you have learned something new?
Yes, yeah.
Have you learned anything new today, Daniel?
Actually, it's more of an explaining more on what I already did when I was a student, but now I actually explained widely. So now even as we prepare to go to the field to use this particular knowledge, I now understand what monitoring and evaluation entails.
Fair enough. But what is it that you feel you got clarity on today? One thing in the area of evaluation, impact evaluation. Anything that for you got clear today by being a participant of this course? Daniel?
Mostly okay. You see, I work as an accountant, but
Oh,
now
you're an accountant.
yes, but now as you see, we give reports in terms of figures, tables, and all that. But now for well, because not everyone is a finance guy.
Yeah.
I understand why as much as yes, I'm going to produce charts and all that, but I have to uh, to uh, to give something like an explanation for those who are not finance people to understand what is being reported on. So as we give yes those financial records and financial statements, I think it's fair. It's fair we are clear on what we are reporting, and especially now for us to give notes or summaries explaining what is on those financial records, so that everyone is able to reason with you and also to understand what you are reporting, because a donor will want to understand everything.
Yeah. Wow. I think you know, having been a practitioner myself in project management, I like that you can talk like that and you're from a finance section. And I think that is what is required, because you see, even those who do audit in business firms, they must first understand what the firm is doing in terms of what business is doing, isn't it?
Yes,
But I think when it comes to project, it's not as straightforward as when you go to a supermarket and you want to do an audit for them, or you go to these corporates, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit different when it comes to it's a bit different when it comes to an accountant in a project context.
Sure.
And that you see that now you can relate to some of the things that are financially oriented towards development projects, other than sales and profits like you normally do in other places. I find that to be a very interesting and perhaps an awakening moment for the role of a project accountant compared to the traditional project, audit accountants. So, yeah, that's interesting. I want to, okay, somebody's hand is up. Martin? Hello,
Yes,
Martin, is your hand
Dr.
up? Yes. Oh, Martin, you're also an
Yeah.
accountant, right?
At the moment, I'm not.
But you see, once an accountant, you're ever, even if you do what you, in fact, that yours will be interesting because then you now see what others do when you are doing your accounting procedures. Anyway,
Yes,
go ahead. What did you want to
but
say?
I was just appreciating the work or the session that we have had today, or especially on the issue of the impact and also this evaluation stuff. And what I should carry away after this session is all about ongoing evaluation is key because in any project, if there is no ongoing evaluation, then that project is dead. So ongoing evaluation is key to every organization for it to achieve its objective. So that's a word I should carry with me myself today. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Martin. Let's say, yeah, time is, I think I know some of us are involved in other things. One last, then we see how we can end this module today. Any other lesson or question, experience from today? Sami Muga or Ochieng, Violet, and whoever that is able to speak. What is it for you? What stands out today as a learning? Sami or Chen can take it up. Ochen? Violet? If you can hear me. My friend Maslinas. If you can hear me, Maslinas.
Yes, Dr. I can hear you.
Oh, great. Please let us. And what's your moment of awakening today? Anything you knew?
Yeah, especially the using the key evaluation questions was critical to me on the part of the data, and also presenting the data that is required, that is cleaned up and relevant to encourage efficiency. That one was a take home for me.
Great.
So, yeah, that one was very important because most often than not, our development partners require. Sometimes they give us such templates that enable us to use those evaluation questions. Maybe they need indirect beneficiaries, direct beneficiaries, under what age, with which gender. So you have to clean up all that and give them data that can be useful to them. Yeah, so that one was very good, especially on the quality of the data that we present during the evaluations. Thank you. Or the reporting.
Okay, thank you so much. You've probably noticed that at this level, we are trying not to speak to any direct reality of our project, because then we have to accommodate everybody. You when you get the slides, you can interrogate even more on exactly how this is worked out and see how that can be applied in their work situations.
Yes,
I think unless there's a burning issue, otherwise I would like to hand over to our moderator, Brother Paul. But before I do that, so that he can make his remarks and maybe see whether he can get someone to close the session with a word of prayer. Next week on Thursday, when we are supposed to have our last Marcelinas, happy? Our last module is next week. It's supposed to be next week. That will be. This is the 14th one.
Mm-hmm.
So the last one is supposed to be the 15th one. Yeah. We thank God for to where we have reached. You know, we don't take things for granted. A lot has happened since we started.
Yeah.
And we are here. Tunashukuru Mungu sana. Except there's something that is happening next week involving my boss, really. And it might interfere with the next week's program. I had made a request, and I would like to put it now across, whether if I'm not available, and you know, being the last one, it will be more elaborate, and it needs when people are relaxed and perhaps reviewing all the other things we've done. I think it will be good that as we come to the next and last module, you have had time to look at what you've done and still be able to ask anything that you missed out. Maybe some of you might have missed some of the modules, and perhaps something has come out from the material I circulated. It will be nice, I think, to raise it up before we officially close. So I was really pleading, if you will, that we find another day we can do a good closure, a good ending. Initially, the thought was on Thursday or on Wednesday, but I know a lot of most people have put Thursday as the day to be able to do other things. So, and and since we also want to prepare and make sure that everything else that needs to be done is done, I was making a request, and I will ask Brother John Paul, to see whether we can meet the other week of 28th for the last contact, but maybe have more time to raise questions which can be handled on the last day. Yes. So that's my request, and I stand guided because we are in this together, and see how then we can handle this. I want to leave it at that and probably hand over to Brother Paul.
Dr. I didn't get you. Which day were you proposing?
The following Thursday.
So we skip 21st. We gather on the 28th.
For the final, God willing.
So the whole of next week is occupied, or?
No, it's only Thursday that I'm not available.
Because the way you're pleading with the other members, we could also plead, because 28th, personally, I'll be having another engagement. It will be the whole day.
Mm.
And you see, if you miss 2 hours, you have missed a lot. Like today we started at 10, and you can see the time it is ending. I don't know whether we can find another day, maybe next week, instead of transferring it to. And again, the more it is consistent, if you skip 2 weeks, some of these things you start forgetting, and by the time you are coming again, you're starting like afresh.
All right.
Either Friday or Wednesday. I don't know. I'm not speaking on behalf of the others, but maybe John Paul can guide.
And I think it's a good place to now hand over to Brother John Paul. John Paul, you can hear me?
Yeah, thanks, Dr.
Kindly finish the conversation and maybe closure with a word of prayer.
So you've heard the request from Dr. There are two suggestions. One is maybe skipping next Thursday, and also you've heard the suggestion from Mr. Siamo that perhaps we can do it next week, but find a particular day that we can do that. So maybe can I get opinions to help us conclude on this?
For your information, Brother Paul, on the only day that we can do that is before Friday, before Thursday, because on Friday I'll be away.
Okay.
So the day we could play around with it maybe Wednesday. Wednesday will be good.
Are we okay with Wednesdays, guys?
To me, that one will be okay. Wednesday.
From 11?
Yeah, from 11.
From 11?
Will be on Wednesday, 20.
Yeah.
So Wednesday from 11.
From 11.
This is okay, Saido. Okay. I hope Saido is talking on behalf of the guys in South Sudan.
Yeah.
Okay, Diana. Okay. So we will do it on Wednesday from 11. That is Kenyan time, 10 South Sudan time.
Yeah. Up to 1.
Yes. So I'll make a communication about that via email. Also, I thank Daniel for. We have training on Wednesday, Made of Hope. Oh, Evelyn. Okay. So, Made of Hope will be occupied.
On Wednesday?
Yeah, we understand that. Okay. It seems quite a number of people are okay with Wednesday. So we'll see how to engage Made of Hope. Yeah. So we encourage you to. What about Tuesday? This is Martin.
Tuesday? Tuesday is tricky for me.
Okay, let's leave it at Wednesday, please.
You can converse about that.
Yeah. So we encourage you through the knowledge that you're receiving that you see how it can shape your own M&E systems within your organizations. And as part of governance role, because mission office undertakes some governance role on behalf of the trustees, will be keen to look at your M&E plans and also the data that you gather. Okay, if you share impact, do you have the evidence from your data to prove that? So those are some of the things that we'll incorporate in our monitoring visits, so that we don't just spend much time on finances, but also the things that you're achieving as a result of your interventions. So thank you very much.
My appeal, though, Paul, brother.
Yeah.
That being the last day of the training, kindly let's see if we can avail ourselves and have the attendance because so that we wrap it up all together. That will be my prayer.
Okay.
Thank you.
And by the way, Brother John Paul, the reminders of the email a day before, during the day in the morning are very helpful. Sometimes you get into so many other things that but Wednesday is not very far. But that reminder is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. So on that note, Ms. Osiemo, you can conclude for us with the word of prayer.
Let us bow for our word of prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time of learning and growth that we have had. We ask for your guidance as we apply these skills in the service to others. We also ask that you may bless the work of the Christian Brothers Ministries, inspiring us to follow their example of compassion, justice, and dedication to those in need. Grant us wisdom to bring meaningful change, patience to listen, and the courage to act with integrity in all the things that we do. May our efforts honor and uplift your holy name. We ask this through Jesus Christ, our name.
Amen.
Our Lord. In the name of the Father.
Amen.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. And congratulations to Daniel, is always the first person to log in. Daniel, Women for Women, he has an outstanding commitment.
Thank you.
That's a typical accountant.
He needs to get first class honors, Doctor.
For logging in the first one. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Edwin Alpha, are you on the way? Edwin? Edwin?